Now, when the Senate says it looks to receive a budget report today, what's it looking to get?
Well, that means that those committees have not completed their work in going over the budget, in going over the budgets from the MDGs and ministries that they oversee. And which means if they haven't done that, then the entire process of passing the budget is still a number of steps away.
As of now, we have only 24 out of the 61 subcommittees who have submitted their reports so far. And the Senate has said today, Thursday deadline, we want to be able to take the conversation forward. Now, Winston, you would recall this is reminiscent of the happenstances that we saw regarding the previous year's budget. As of March of last year, we were still talking on giving MDAs 1 week deadline to submit their reporting. There were conversations about whether or not to scrap certain MDAs. Do you anticipate that there will be another delay in budget implementation this year?
24 out of 61, it's almost a certainty. We should stop using the word deadline. We should just say an indicative time to report. Because we say deadline all the time and nothing ever dies and nothing ever stops and nothing ever ends. We have not implemented any budget in any government in the last, ever since we came into civilian rule, that has come in on time. And this one will not come in on time.
As of this time last year, the ministries, departments, and agencies whose reports are further aggregated to make the budgetary recommendations for each year were accused of shunning appearances to defend the 2018 budget estimates. Would you say that lessons were learned from the eventual failure to achieve the January to December calendar year that Nigeria has been talking about for years now?
Well, the fact is no. 24 out of 61 says no. 24 out of 61 means 37 people looked at everything that happened last year and went, and moved on with their lives. We're not doing anything. We can have full outrage or we can have real outrage. What we've had up till now is full outrage. If we want to have real outrage, we need to go in and say, okay, you didn't put it in, zero out everybody's budget, and let's move on. And by the time you zero out 1, 2, 3, 4 people's budgets, what you'll find is people start to move. People respond to incentives. Right now, there is no downside incentive to not getting your work done on time, and there's no upside incentive to getting it done on time. So for all intensive purposes, people do what they want when they want. And it's just sad.
Talking about incentives and as well as punitive measures, I take you back to the conversation where the hot topic at the parliament was, okay, if we are having such delays and shunnings by the MDAs, can we just take a step back and review those that are actually contributing to the economic progress of the country and then strike them out? It's been a year after that. Did you get any update or any realities of certain MDAs being struck out because of lack of efficiency or because of failure to comply with, you said to not use the word deadlines.
So let's look at it this way. There is nothing in the public space that says that any one agency was brought in, questioned, and their reason for being really questioned or threatened. There's nothing in the public space. There's nothing that tells us that any of that work was actually done. And so, again, this is just full outrage. When people realize that all you're going to do is talk and nothing is going to happen after that, nobody's going to react. They're going to let you stand on your soapbox, do your thing, and everybody move on, and life will continue as is. And until that changes, nothing will change.
So since 2017, it's been around dancing in circles. I remember I particularly had a chat with the budget minister, Udo Udoma, who talked about plans as at that time to actually achieve the January to December calendar and then go get an uptick on budget implementation. Now, fast forward, the president said, he promised that also during his campaign. If you remember that, he said we would go back to the January to December calendar. That was part of President Buhari's campaign promises. And then fast forward, while unveiling the medium-term expenditure framework and policy strategy paper for 2019 to 2021, he said it might be difficult to achieve that one-year full calendar. His reasons, electioneering year, and the National Assembly might need time to actually go through proposals.
So, we'll give him electioneering year. If we look at what the minister Udo Udoma has done, we also have to give him the benefit of the doubt, because consistently they've delivered that budget to Parliament in good time. They have. Usually by October, November, that budget has been transmitted to the Senate and the National Assembly. The hold-up has always been in there. So even if you give them electioneering, but again, let's ask ourselves this. Imagine if you had an employee Because whether we like it or not, politicians are employees of the people. An employee who takes off 4 months to go look for another job and does nothing about the job you put them in, do they deserve to still have that job? And if you keep giving them that job, well, you deserve to get the results you get, period. So until we hold people accountable for what they do, they will continue to do whatever it in their personal best interest. And right now, there is no downside to not keeping to any sort of schedule.
So we do need punitive measures for lack of compliance.
The only punitive measure that the populace has is you need to go to the ballot box and you need to ask yourself, who are the people that run these committees? Do they matter to us? And if these people are not delivering for you, you need to move those people out the way.
That's another 4 years. We're still waiting for May 29.
No, it's not another 4 years.
Electioneering is still on.
No, it's not another 4 years. You can recall people from, you can set up, if you can organize, you can recall the person that represents you.
From
The power stays in your hands permanently. The only difference is the vast majority of the population do not understand a lot of this. This is a conversation that I had between a very small group in the population. But what that small group in the population too has to start to do is look at these people. All these people, we know them. They are people's friends. We are people that contribute to the election. We need to start telling these people, for once, we look terrible. Look at the embarrassment that the UK government is facing in Brexit. We have been facing that level of embarrassment every single year.
The federal government scores itself 75% on performance of the previous year's budget. It says having not spent the projected amount on expenditure.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you reckon this delays and rollovers would have on budget performance for this year? If we had delays and rollovers from last year and the federal government says, since we didn't spend projected amount on expenditure, we score ourselves 75%.
Well, I'll say this much. There is no fair contest in which one of the participants also gets to keep score.